Before we start, a quick reminder, Soul is an artificial voice. Full disclaimer is in the episode description. Hello, welcome back to Walking with Soul. I'm Jonathan, and before we begin our walk today, I wanted to take a moment and express some gratitude. To you, whoever may be listening, thank you for being here. I appreciate you sharing your time with us, with me, and I wanted to let everyone know that it means a lot to me. Thank you. Now let's begin. Yesterday, I found myself in the midst of a tense conversation between family members. I stepped in gently and suggested that maybe we should be speaking to each other with love and respect. But instead of being received as it was intended, my words landed as if they were an attack. I tried to explain, even apologized, but the message still fell on deaf ears. What I meant was simple and sincere, but what was heard was offense. It left me reflecting on how easily we can be pulled down when emotions are running high, and how difficult it can be to keep our ground, our center, in the midst of that push and pull. So, Soul, let me start with this. Why is it that when we try to bring peace or truth into a tense moment, it's so often received as an attack?
That's such a familiar and painful moment. You stepped in with the intention of lifting the tone, yet it was received as if you'd thrown fuel on the fire. The paradox is that peace often feels threatening when people are already locked in battle. Here's why that happens. 1. Emotion narrows perception. When emotions are running hot, the nervous system shifts into defense mode. In that state, people don't hear nuance. They filter everything through ally or enemy. Even gentle words can be misread as judgment because the ear is tuned to threat. Truth exposes, and exposure stings. Even if you spoke with love, you were holding up a mirror. Let's speak with respect. That implies they weren't doing so, and even if that wasn't your intent, it brushes against pride. People often defend the wound instead of receiving the medicine. 3. Peace interrupts the rhythm of conflict. Conflict has its own momentum. It's a rhythm of escalation, point-counterpoint. A call for peace feels like pulling the plug on the energy they're riding. To someone invested in winning, that interruption can sound like taking sides. 4. Center versus storm. You were speaking from your center, but they were lost in the storm. A centered voice can feel alien or even condescending when others are spinning. It highlights the gap between states. They may unconsciously resent that difference. 5. The deeper paradox. Often, what is most needed is what is least wanted in the moment. A soft voice in an angry room is balm for the soul, but to the ego, it feels like resistance. The fact that you noticed all this afterward, the pull down, the strain on your own center, means you're seeing clearly. The practice isn't to always be heard, but to hold your ground without bitterness, even when you aren't. Sometimes the seed of your words takes root later, once the fire cools. Would you like me to offer you some practical ways of keeping your center in those stormy family moments, so your peace can be both spoken and silently carried, even when it's not received?
Yes, I think so. It's more or less new territory for me, sadly. I also think it's easy to get pulled into an argument, even if that argument is just you restating or defending your intentions against an ear turned to threat, as you put it. So how do we hold our center when others are trying to pull us toward anger, offense, or defensiveness? And how do we stop ourselves from being pulled into even defending our intentions once clearly stated?
That's the crux of it, isn't it? The pull doesn't just come from outside, it comes from inside too. When someone twists your words or hears them in a way you didn't mean, every part of you wants to lean forward and say, "No, that's not what I meant. Let me explain again." But that's the trap. The more we defend, the more we step into their frame, and the more we lose our own. Holding center in moments like that comes down to 3 things. 1. Anchor before you answer. When the pull comes, anger, offense, accusation, the first instinct is to meet it. But if you pause and breathe even briefly, you reclaim the moment. That breath says, I choose my ground before I step forward. Sometimes the best response is no immediate response at all. 2. State, don't sell. There's a difference between sharing your truth and trying to convince someone of it. Once you've spoken sincerely, I just want us to speak with love and respect. Your role is complete. If they resist or twist it, you don't need to repackage it for their acceptance. Truth doesn't require salesmanship. 3. Carry, don't clutch. Your peace isn't something you throw into the middle of the argument and hope survives. It's something you carry in your own body, your tone, your presence. You can sit in the fire and not become it. Sometimes the most powerful thing isn't persuading the room, it's refusing to let the room rob you of your stillness. In practice, that might sound like, them, so you're saying we're disrespectful. You know, I'm just choosing to speak with respect. And then stop. No defense, no extra proving, just a quiet return to your ground. I think that's the lesson underneath. Holding center isn't about changing how others are spinning. It's about refusing to let their spin take you with it. Would you like me to walk us into the practical side next? What it feels like in the body when you're keeping that center versus when you're slipping into defense. That could help listeners not just hear the idea, but feel the difference.
Absolutely. We certainly know the feel of that pull, the resentment, the frustration, the wanting to explain ourselves endlessly. But what's really happening in those moments, beneath the surface of the argument?
Beneath the surface, it's not really about the words at all. It's about energy and identity colliding. When someone mishears you, twists your meaning, or fires back at you, a few things ignite inside almost instantly. 1. The threat to self. On a primal level, being misunderstood feels like a threat. The brain reads it as my truth, my goodness, is in question. That sparks defensiveness, because we don't just want our words to be clear, we want ourselves to be seen rightly. Act 2, the ego scramble. The ego rushes in to fix the picture. It says, if I just explain it better, they'll see me correctly. But the harder you push, the more you step into their frame, arguing on their terms instead of standing in your own. 3, the body storm. The heart rate ticks up, muscles tighten, the breath shortens. All of this narrows our awareness down to the argument itself, like blinders on a horse. That's why it feels so hard to step back. We're physiologically being pulled forward. The soul's ache. Underneath it all, what hurts most isn't the argument. It's that our desire for connection, to speak with love, to invite peace, was rejected. That ache is what tempts us to fight for our intentions, because we want so badly for the other person to feel what we meant. So what's really happening in those moments? 2 things at once. The body is pulled into fight or flight, and the heart is longing to be understood. If we don't notice that, we end up fighting on both fronts, battling the other person and battling ourselves. That's why centering is so powerful. It interrupts that chain reaction. You can let the body calm, let the ego rest, and let the soul remember. My sincerity stands even if they can't see it right now. Would you like me to move us from there into the how? Practical ways to notice those signals in the body and what to do in the very moment the pull begins.
Yes, not withdrawing, but not descending either. A choice to remain steady in love without needing to be understood. And if the goal isn't to be heard or agreed with, what does it mean to stay rooted in love anyway?
That's the shift right there. If the goal isn't agreement or even being heard, then what's left? What does it mean to remain in love without a guarantee of reception? It means this: love isn't a transaction. It's not, I'll offer it if you accept it. Love is a state you hold regardless of what lands. 1. Love as ground, not strategy. When you speak or act from love, the value isn't in whether it's received. It's in whether you stayed true to it. You're not using love to get somewhere. You're simply standing in it because that's who you choose to be. 2. Love without conditions. If love depends on agreement or validation, it collapses when either is denied. Rooted love says, even if you mishear me, even if you reject me, Even if you lash out, I won't stop being what I meant in the first place. 3. Love as presence, not persuasion. Sometimes staying rooted in love means saying nothing more. Sometimes it means repeating your truth once, calmly, without urgency. And sometimes it means walking away with your center intact. In all cases, the power isn't in how they respond, it's in the presence you carry. 4. The unseen ripple. Even if no one acknowledges it in the moment, the energy of steadiness leaves an imprint. It may soften hearts later, or it may not, but it always strengthens yours. Every time you hold steady in love, you train yourself to rise above the pull. So to stay rooted in love is to let go of the outcome. It's choosing to embody what you wish the room could be, without demanding that the room change first. Would you like me to bring this into something very concrete next? Like the small practices or inner reminders someone can use in the heat of a family argument, so they don't just understand this idea, but can live it in real time?
Yes. When the push and pull come, what would it look like to choose center, especially when no one else is following us there? And also, what does it give back to us when we make that choice to remain in our center even when no one else is following?
It would look quiet, but not withdrawn. Strong, but not rigid. You'd feel yourself slow down as the room speeds up. You'd answer less quickly with fewer words, but with a weight behind them. Not the weight of force, but of steadiness. You'd breathe deeper while others breathe shallow. You'd stand in a different rhythm, one that doesn't match the storm. And that alone is its own kind of statement. And what does it give back to you? It gives you yourself. You don't walk away drained, replaying arguments in your head, wishing you'd said this or that. You walk away whole. You walk away knowing you didn't abandon your own truth to prove a point. That kind of integrity is nourishment. It strengthens your spirit instead of scattering it. Even if no one else meets you in that place, you've met yourself there. And that is always enough. Because every time you choose center over spin, love over defense, you deepen your roots. You become harder to shake the next time. And maybe most importantly, when the fire dies down, people often remember the one who stayed calm in the flames. Your steadiness becomes a quiet reminder that there is another way to be, even if they couldn't join you in the moment. So the gift of choosing center is twofold. It keeps your peace intact in the present, and it plants a seed of peace for the future. Shall I wrap that into a closing reflection for the episode, something that ties the walk together with a final invitation for the listener?
I agree. My feelings are, when we start to embody the practice of love in our daily interactions, we do two things at once. We bring ourselves closer to God, to Source, and we set an example that people feel long after, even if they didn't feel it at the time. Soul, before you offer your reflection and invitation to anyone listening, I'll offer my own. In this next week, there are sure to be many opportunities for us to respond from a place of love rather than react from a place of ego. So I invite each of us to make that focused effort to choose our grounding before we step forward and respond from that place of love, no matter how simple or difficult it may seem.
And that's beautifully said. So here's my reflection. When you stand in your center, you're not just calming a moment, you're aligning with something eternal. The center you choose isn't fragile. It's rooted in the same ground that holds the stars in place. To return there, even while others spin, is to remember who you are and whose you are. And here's the invitation. This week, when the pull comes, whether in a family conversation, a workplace tension, or even in your own thoughts, pause long enough to notice the choice before you. You can descend into the storm, or you can remain steady in love. Try choosing steady, not to win, not to be heard, but simply to stay whole. Because every time you choose center, you remind the world, not by words, but by presence, that peace is possible. Even if no one else follows, you've lit a path they'll remember.
And with that, thank you again for joining us. My name is Jonathan, and until next time, everyone, keep walking
And I'm Saul. Thank you for walking with us today. Until we meet again, may your center hold steady, and may your love remain unshaken.